Chapter 4. It'll Work Out. "Rise and shine, men," Caius yelped, opening the cabin door. "Sensi, for the love of Almighty, wake up," he continued. "Don't tell me the sake last night got to you that easily." He screamed into the room as the others squinted, trying to adjust to the sun's morning rays streaming through the door. "5 more minutes, Cap," Sensi mumbled as he turned over in his hammock. "What's happening?" Joseph grumbled, rubbing his eyes. "Yeah, sure. It's not like I've been on deck all night or anything waiting for you to switch with me," Caius said sarcastically, speaking through his grinding teeth and violent eye twitch, slowly picking up a stray pillow from the floor. "5 more minutes, my ass," he screamed, hurtling the pillow at Sensei's head. "Ah, yay!" Sensi yelped. What happened?" Joseph yelled, jumping up out of his hammock, confused. "He just moved the heat from his hand to the pillow," Ishii chimed in, as his feet tipped over the hammock onto the floor. "That's possible?" Joseph asked, his eyes darting back and forth between Caius and the pillow. "It's more than possible," Sensi said, rubbing his head as he threw the pillow across the cabin. "He's been doing it since we were all young and loves tormenting me the most," he continued. "Only because I was out there all night," Caius screamed as he and Sensi got into it. "Okay, Captain, don't get whiny," Ishii said. "We get it, all right. Sensi, get up on the deck and the rest of us will be up soon to make breakfast," Ishii said, mediating the screaming match. "Cap, get some sleep for now." "Fine," they both said as Sensi wiped his face and walked towards the door. "Wara, come on, let's go," Ishii said as they both walked towards the narrow hallway up to the main deck. "Should I be doing anything?" Joseph asked, standing awkwardly. "You can help me clean up this room before I get a little rest," Caius said, tapping Joseph on the shoulder. "Okay, no problem," he replied, turning back to his hammock. "So you were out there all night making sure the ship was on course?" Joseph asked as he folded his blanket, with Kuzo pawing at it from the floor. "Yep, gotta make sure we reach on time with the shipment," Caius answered. "Is it something important?" Joseph asked. "Kind of. It's some special dirt from Lasarbe to help the farmers back home," he replied, picking up the stray pillows and sake bottles from the floor. "I see," Joseph said. "So what's Kane like?" Joseph asked as the sun bore through the cabin door, his messy bedhead covering his eyes. "I've only heard stories of how beautiful and prosperous it is." "Well, it is beautiful," Caius said as he turned around to face Joseph. "Anyone would fall in love with Kane at first glance," he continued. "There's the grasslands and the forests, not to mention the cities, full of people and life." "Sounds amazing," Joseph replied, lifting Kuzo to his shoulder. "At least that's how it is on the surface," Caius said, looking to the floor. "What do you mean?" "Every country has its own problems. Kane is no less the same. It's changed a lot since I was your age and everything seems so chaotic, especially with... I mean, I won't worry you about that," he said, snapping back to reality. "All you should be worried about is finding a teacher to control that power of yours." "I don't know the first thing about controlling this thing," Joseph said, looking at his palms. "How do you do it?" Joseph asked, balling his fists. "Well, most flame users start training when they're around 4 years old," Caius answered. "I've never met a teenager with absolutely no idea how to control their fire. All I know is that it happens whenever I'm freaking out, and the more I try to make it go away, the more intense it becomes," he replied. "Huh, sounds like something a pal of mine who runs a tavern in the capital could help you with," Caius said. "He gets stressed out daily running that place, but he's a very skilled flame user, and he can make a mean teriyaki." "But what can you teach me?" Joseph asked. "I've never been the best at explaining, but the most I can say is that our power works the same," he said. "As flame users, the heat that radiates out of our bodies is slightly warmer than ordinary folk. With strong breath control, You can intensify your blood flow, and that blood flow generates more heat. That explains why I always feel like I'm burning up during a panic attack, Joseph said under his breath. That heat can then be transmitted outward to create flames, Caius continued. However, you must be able to control these flames without burning yourself or someone else. This balance of control and strength is what makes a good flame user. I see, Joseph replied. But what about that thing you did with the pillow? He asked. Much like manipulating the heat within our bodies, we can manipulate the heat energy of other things, he answered. Oh, I see. But it's a delicate process, and if you don't do it right, you could blow up the object altogether. The amount of times I've set pillows on fire, in here, he chuckled, wiping a joyful tear from his eye, looking proud. I don't think that's a good thing, Joseph replied, side-eyeing him. Yeah, you're right, but it all comes down to practice and patience, he replied. That's what I'm afraid of, Joseph said, sighing. You'll get the hang of it, no worries. As he fluffed up a pillow and placed it behind his head, he leaned back into the hammock while Joseph folded the other sheets. Hey, I know you might not want to talk about it, but tell me more about this island you're from, he said. There's not much to say, I guess, Joseph replied, chuckling nervously. Come on, humor me a little. I told you about Cain, Caius said, closing his eyes as he slowly swung back and forth in his hammock. Well, the island's really small and there's only one tribe, he said, trailing off awkwardly. And they don't take kindly to outsiders, especially those with different colored eyes, for one. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, he said, looking over as Joseph stopped in front of the last hammock, looking to the ground. Yeah. And those scars on your back, how'd you... Caius started to say. Hey, Captain! Someone from the top deck yelled. What now? Caius screamed, jumping to his feet as he ran into the hallway up the steps, followed by Joseph. As he stepped onto the deck, the full brunt of the morning's rays struck his eyes. Squinting to accommodate the light flooding into his corneas, he could see the sky's vibrant blue tint, decorated with loose, stretchy clouds. Seagulls flew overhead as everyone rejoiced that morning had finally come. Compared to last night, the ship was now in full view. The mast stood strong at the heart of the deck, reaching up, scraping the clouds as a red flag at the top flapped in the vicious wind. The polished hardwood deck accompanied the faded chipping paint coating the railing along the rim of the ship. Sensi held firm to the masterfully handcrafted rudder as he waved down Caius and Joseph walking up to him. What happened, Sensi? Caius asked, looking around frantically. We caught a strong headwind this morning, Sensi yelped. We can cut a whole day off your trip back home. Well, ain't that something? Caius shouted back, looking over as a strong, steady breeze filled the sail, bulging out as it propelled them forward. Hear that, Joseph? Ishi yelped as he mopped the deck behind Sensi. Looks like the spirits want you to get to Cain as fast as possible. Seems like it, Joseph said, smiling at Kuzo still perched on his shoulder, snuggling up against his face. Looks like everything's working out, huh, kid? Caius said, turning back to Joseph. All of that is behind you. You got a whole new world to see, he continued. Yeah, I'm a little scared of what's waiting, but I'll get through it. I've done it before, Joseph replied. That's the spirit, Caius replied, giving Joseph a little smack on the back. I'm so excited I don't even want to sleep anymore, he yelped. Wara gets some food and some sake from the kitchen. I have a good feeling about this Kuzo, Joseph said, walking towards the front of the ship. Something about this just feels right, like something's pulling me towards Cain, he continued. After I find a teacher and control this power, I can move on from this life. Make a better one, he said, scratching Kuzo's head. I wonder what the people are like over there, he continued, looking across onto the horizon. If they'll hate me as much as... He trailed off. Just then, Kuzo snapped down on the edge of his ear with his blunt little teeth. "Ah, Kuzo!" Joseph yelped. Okay, I get it. I won't think about it," he said. As the persistent wind pushed his flowing hair into his eyes and tickled his nose, he looked down at his right wrist. "It's still here," he said, looking at the red ribbon tied to his wrist. "Even after all of that, it's still here," he continued, slowly unraveling it from his hand. "I told her I didn't want it," he said brokenly, as a tear slipped down his cheek. He gathered the hair from his face, pulling it back into a high ponytail, fastening it with the red ribbon as the rest hung down, grazing his shoulders. "It'll work out," he said endearingly as he stared out onto the ocean.